If you know these 6 English idioms that I'm about to share with you in today's video, your English is fantastic and wonderful. So let's start focusing on these 6 idioms without further ado. The first one is to go against the grain. To go against the grain. You heard me right. To go against the grain. What is the meaning of go against the grain? To go against the grain means to behave in a way that is not conventional, that is not traditional, that is not expected. To behave in a way that is contrary to people's expectations, that is contrary to what people expect. An example of this phrase: it goes against the grain for her to stay silent. She always speaks her mind. It goes against the grain for her to stay silent. She always speaks her mind, which means it is really uncommon for her to stay silent. It is not typical of her to stay silent. It is not what people expect of her. It is not what people expect her to do. You know, she is not expected to stay silent. She's always someone who speaks her mind, who speaks, who opens up, who shares her thoughts, her opinions, her viewpoints, perspectives. She's someone that expresses herself, that clearly expresses her feelings, and never hides her feelings and hides her thoughts, ideas, opinions, viewpoints, or whatever. So it goes against the grain for her to stay silent. She is usually expected to speak her mind. You know, she always speaks her mind in such situations, so it goes against the grain for her to stay silent, which means she's not expected to stay silent. She's always expected to speak her mind and share her opinions or express her feelings. And the fact that she stays silent is really not typical of her, is really uncommon for her, you know, is really unheard of. She usually does the opposite. Now we're proceeding to the second English idiom that if you know your English is super advanced and fantastic, you have a very high and a very advanced command of English idioms, which is to call someone's bluff. To call someone's bluff. Once again, to call someone's bluff. What happens when you call someone's bluff? Well, to call someone's bluff means to try to challenge someone to prove their claim, or to ask someone to prove their claim by challenging them, especially when we know that they're lying to us or they're exaggerating something. So when you call someone's bluff, you try to challenge someone to prove their claim, especially when you know that they're lying to you about something or they're exaggerating something. You know, they're making a big deal out of something. An example of this phrase: he said that he'd quit if he didn't get a raise, so his boss called his bluff and he didn't quit. He said that he'd quit if he didn't get a raise, so his boss called his bluff and he didn't quit, which means he claimed that he would quit if he didn't get a raise, so his boss decided to challenge him by asking him to quit. His boss decided to challenge him in order to prove his point, in order to prove his claim, because he was exaggerating, you know, the idea of quitting. He was exaggerating that he would quit if he didn't get a raise. So his boss decided to try to challenge him in order for him to prove his claim by asking him to leave, to go, or by trying not to give him a raise in order to expect him to do what he has said that he would do. But he didn't quit. He did not, you know, do what he had promised that he would do. He did not redeem his promises. He did not act on his words. He did not act on what he had said that he would do. So his boss called his bluff. Now we're getting to the third English phrase that if you know, your English is super advanced and fantastic, which is a house of cards. A house of cards. Once again, a house of cards. But what does it mean? Where do we use it? How is it used? These are all the questions flashing through your mind that I need to provide responses to. Well, a house of cards refers to a very fragile, vulnerable, and unpredictable or unstable situation that is very likely to collapse. Once again, a house of cards refers to a very fragile, vulnerable, like unstable and unpredictable situation that is very likely to collapse, or that is very likely to change for the worse soon. An example of this phrase: their business looked very successful, but it turned out to be a house of cards built on debt. Their business looked very successful, but it turned out to be a house of cards built on debt. Once again, their business looked very successful on the outside, but on the inside, it turned out to be a house of cards built on debt, which means their business on the outside looked very successful and impressive, but on the inside, it turned out to be a house of cards. It turned out to be a very unstable, unpredictable, vulnerable, and fragile situation that would change soon for the worse, or that would collapse soon. Now we're proceeding to the fourth English idiom that if you know, your English is wonderful, fantastic, unspeakable, and beyond description that you got to be so proud of, which is to read someone the riot act. To read someone the riot act. Once again, to read someone the riot act. When you read someone the riot act, you try to give someone a very serious warning. You try to warn someone seriously. An example of this idiom. After the students vandalized the bathroom, the principal read them the riot act. After the students vandalized the bathroom, the principal read them the riot act, which means after the students vandalized or destroyed the bathroom, the principal, the person responsible for the school or the person in charge of the school, read them the riot act, gave them a very, very serious warning, or warned them very seriously, threatened them very seriously. Now we're getting to the fifth English phrase that if you know and also use, your English is indescribable or unspeakable. Your English is so good that you got to be proud of it, which is to rock the boat. To rock the boat. To rock the boat. What happens when you rock the boat? Well, when you rock the boat, you disturb a situation that is already stable or working well or is fine. So to rock the boat means to disturb a situation, to disorder a situation that is already fine, working well, or is going ahead successfully. An example. Let's now rock the boat by bringing up controversial topics during the meeting. Let's now rock the boat by bringing up controversial topics during the meeting. Once again, let's not rock the boat by bringing up controversial topics during the meeting, which means let's not disturb the situation that is already stable and working well or is going ahead successfully. How? By bringing up controversial topics, by bringing up provocative or sensitive topics that might disorder or disturb the situation, that might provoke everyone's feelings, or that might get everyone to argue with one another. And now we're getting to the final phrase of today's video, that if you know, your English is fantastic, your English is super advanced and amazing. Your English is what you got to be proud of, what you got to be so proud of, which is to bury the hatchet. To bury the hatchet. Once again, to bury the hatchet. But what does it mean? When you bury the hatchet, or bury your differences, in other words, you try to make peace, you try to get reconciled with someone after an argument. You try to stop arguing with someone. You try to, stop fighting with them. In other words, you reach an agreement that you should stop arguing with someone. In other words, when you bury the hatchet, what you do is to stop arguing or fighting with someone, and instead you try to make friends with them. You try to start a friendship or a friendly relationship with them. You try to forget all about your differences, the disputes, the conflicts. You try to ignore and undermine all the differences between you and them, all the disputes, conflicts that you've had, and you try to start a very friendly relationship with them. An example of this phrase. After years of rivalry, the two actors decided to bury the hatchet and work together. After years of rivalry, the two actors decided to bury the hatchet and work together, which means after years of rivalry and competition, the two actors decided to bury the hatchet. They decided to stop arguing with each other, stop competing with each other, stop challenging each other, decided to stop their hostile relationship with each other, decided to be reconciled with one another and work together. That's about all, guys. Thank you for watching today's video. So you learned 6 very practical English idioms that you can use to show everyone that your English is advanced. Let's review them once again together. Go against the grain. Go against the grain. Call someone's bluff. Call someone's bluff. A house of cards. A house of cards. Read the riot act. Read the riot act. Rock the boat. Rock the boat. Bury the hatchet. Bury the hatchet. Thank you for watching today's video. Make sure you like this video in support of your YouTube English teacher. and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'll be back soon with another video.